My name is Helen, and I work the graveyard shift at a city morgue. I am a single mother with a 10-year-old daughter named Patricia. For years, my younger sister Rose watched Patricia while I worked, but Rose started high school this year. Between classes and soccer practice, she could not always be there anymore, so I hired a babysitter online. Her name was Melissa, 26 years old, good reviews, clean background check. When I called her, she sounded calm and asked all the right questions about Patricia's routine and bedtime. The first 2 nights went fine. Patricia said Melissa was quiet but nice, no problems. Then came the 3rd night. When I got home that morning, Patricia was sitting on the couch in her pajamas. Her face was pale. Her hands were shaking. She looked terrified. She told me Melissa had spent the entire night standing in the corner of her bedroom, facing the wall. Not sitting, not sleeping, just standing there for hours. Patricia said Melissa made this low humming sound that never stopped. Constant, like someone crying with their mouth closed. Patricia tried talking to her, asked if she was okay. Melissa never responded, never turned around, just stood there, staring at the wall, humming. Patricia said she was too scared to leave her room. She stayed in bed with the covers pulled up, watching Melissa's back all night. She said Melissa's shoulders trembled slightly, but she never moved her feet, never turned her head. I wanted to believe Patricia had dreamed it, but she began begging me not to let Melissa come back. So I went upstairs and pulled up the nanny cam footage on my phone. I had installed a small camera in Patricia's room months ago, just a lens on the bookshelf. I had not checked it in weeks. I found the timestamp from the night before. At 11:08 p.m., Melissa walked into Patricia's room. She closed the door, walked to the far corner by the closet, and turned to face the wall. She stood there for over 4 hours. Her arms hung at her sides, her head tilted forward like she was staring at something that was not there. The humming was on the recording, low, unbroken. It never stopped. At 3:12 a.m., the humming stopped. Melissa stood silent for a few minutes. Then she walked backward toward the door, still facing the wall. She opened it behind her, stepped out, and closed it. She never looked at Patricia, never looked at the camera. She just left. I stared at my phone screen. My chest felt tight. My hands went cold. I deleted the video. I did not want Patricia to come across it again. Then I went on the website and left a 1-star review. I explained what happened. I used words like disturbing and wrong. The review was removed within 3 hours. An automated email said it violated community standards. Apparently, you cannot use negative language. 3 weeks later, my phone rang at 2:40 inches the morning. When I looked at the screen, the caller ID showed an unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail since I was barely awake. But something made me answer. There was silence at first, just faint static. Then a woman's voice came through, calm, flat, almost robotic. She said, "Whatever the babysitter did was never to hurt your daughter." The line went dead before I could respond. I checked my call log. The incoming call was not there, just a blank space where it should have been. My name is Jericho. I handle night repairs at a transport depot about 20 miles outside the city. It is one of those massive concrete warehouses where they park old city buses that need work. The building sits alone on a stretch of industrial road, empty lots on both sides. Chain link fencing runs along the perimeter. During the day, mechanics and drivers move constantly, but from 10 at night until 6 in the morning, the place is mine. I change the oil, replace brake lines, run engine diagnostics. I swap out worn belts and check fluid levels. The work keeps my hands busy and my mind quiet. Most nights I enjoy it. No one is breathing down my neck, no radios blasting, just the hum of fluorescent lights and the sound of metal hitting concrete when I drop a wrench. The warehouse is brutal in its size. Steel beams run across the ceiling like ribs. Rows of buses sit parked in numbered bays that stretch back into darkness. The floor is stained black from decades of leaked oil and hydraulic fluid. The lighting runs on motion sensors to save power. Most of the building stays dark unless you walk through it. I keep my work area lit and move through the shadows when I need parts or tools. I have been working alone for the past 4 months. Before that, there was an older guy named Mr. Richard who ran the place. He taught me most of what I know about diesel engines. He showed me how to read compression tests, how to diagnose misfires just by listening to the sound. Good man. But liver cancer took him back in June. Management never bothered to hire anyone to replace him. They just handed me his shifts and told me to keep things running. The extra pay was welcome. The isolation never bothered me. Not until that Tuesday night in late October. The air had that cold bite to it that creeps through the loading bay doors, no matter how many times you close them. I was on bus 2-4 around 2 in the morning. I had the oil pan draining and was just lying there on my back waiting for the old fluid to empty. My headlamp was on. My tool cart was right next to me when I heard an engine turn over. It wasn't close to me. It was somewhere in the back rows. Bay 6, maybe Bay 7. The sound was unmistakable, that low diesel growl of a bus coming to life. The rattle of the exhaust system, the vibration in the concrete beneath me. I slid out from under the bus and stood up fast. My coveralls were covered in grease. My hands started shaking slightly, though I did not realize it at the time. Every single bus in that warehouse was supposed to be off. Dead. The ignition keys were locked in the main office at the front of the building. Nobody had access to them but me and the day supervisor, so I grabbed my flashlight and started walking toward the sound. The motion sensors picked me up and triggered the overhead lights in sections as I moved. Bay 4, Bay 5, Bay 6. The engine noise grew louder with each step I took. The vibration was thrumming through the floor like a heartbeat. When I reached Bay 6, the sound stopped. Just like that. There was complete silence. The bus sat there in the dim light, dark and lifeless. I stood there staring at it, trying to make sense of what I had just heard, because I knew what I heard. I climbed up the steps into the cab and checked the ignition. There was no key. The dashboard was cold to the touch. I popped the engine cover and looked at the battery terminals. Disconnected. There was no way that bus could have started on its own. I told myself it was the air compressor kicking on, or maybe a sound from outside bouncing off the metal walls. I have heard strange things in that place before. I went back to my station and tried to focus on finishing the oil change. About 10 minutes later, I heard something else. A faint metallic clinking sound, rhythmic, deliberate, like someone tightening bolts with a socket wrench. It was coming from somewhere down the line, maybe 3 or 4 bays over from where I was working. I called out, "Hey, is someone here?" The sound stopped. I grabbed my flashlight again and walked down the line. I checked under each bus, looked inside the cabs, checked the tool stations and supply closets. Nothing, no one. The warehouse was empty. When I got back to my workbench, I noticed my 14mm socket wrench was missing. I had just used it a few minutes earlier. I set it down on the cart right next to my oil filter wrench. I scanned the floor around me, checked my pockets, looked under the cart. It was not there. Then I felt a soft tap right behind me. I turned around slowly. Nobody was there, but my 14mm socket wrench was lying on the ground directly behind where I had been standing, not lying flat like it had fallen, It was standing upright, balanced perfectly on its narrow end. I just stared at it. You cannot balance a socket wrench like that. The weight distribution makes it physically impossible. It should have fallen over the second it touched the ground. My throat went dry. I called out again, louder this time. Who is doing this? You think this is funny? No answer. Just the faint drip of oil somewhere in the distance. The motion sensor lights only stayed on in the sections where I was working. The rest of the warehouse remained pitch black. I decided right then that I needed to see everything. I needed to know if someone was hiding in the shadows between those buses. So I walked toward the main breaker panel near the office entrance. My boots echoed on the concrete with each step. I tried not to look between the buses as I passed them. When I reached the panel and flipped every switch, the entire warehouse flooded with harsh white light. At the far end of the building, near Bay 12, something moved. It stepped out from between two buses, slowly. It was shaped like a person, but the proportions were all wrong. Too tall, too thin. Its arms hung down way too low. Its legs bent at angles that made no sense. It did not run. It did not try to hide. It just walked straight out into the center of the floor under the brightest lights in the building. And it stopped. I tried to put my feelings in order, but they would not stay. I tried to make sense of what I was looking at, but my brain would not hold it. The information kept slipping away. Then it raised one arm and waved at me. Not a quick gesture, a slow, side-to-side motion. It wanted me to see it clearly. It wanted me to know it was real. This happened late last year, while I was still working night shifts as a train conductor, but I refused to go back after what I saw. The route was simple, Newton to Harlow. 43 miles of flat farmland and empty towns. Most nights were quiet, too quiet sometimes. The only sounds were the wheels grinding on the tracks and the low hum of the engine pushing through the darkness. That night, the train was almost empty when we pulled out of Newton Station. Just a handful of passengers scattered across 3 cars. An older woman with grocery bags in both hands. A college kid with headphones in, eyes closed. A businessman in a wrinkled suit staring down at his phone. And one man was sitting near the back of the last car. I moved through the aisles like I always do, checking tickets, making sure everyone was comfortable. Most of them were already half asleep or staring out the windows at nothing. The farmland out here looks the same no matter what time of day it is. Flat, dark, endless. By the halfway point, passengers started getting off one by one. The woman at Crestview, the kid at Maple Ridge, the businessman at Porter Junction. The seats emptied slowly until it was just me and that one man in the back. I walked down the aisle toward him. My boots made hollow sounds on the metal floor. The overhead lights flickered slightly as the train swayed. I stopped a few feet away from him and said, "The train was almost empty, sir." Just making conversation, letting him know we would be pulling into Harlow in about 15 minutes. There was no response. He was sitting with his head tilted slightly to the side, not leaning against the window, just tilted, like he was listening to something I could not hear. I cleared my throat and tried again. "Sir, we will be at Harlow soon. Last stop." Still nothing. Then he turned, slowly. His head rotated toward me like it was on a hinge, and that was when I saw his face. It looked pale, almost gray in the flickering light. His skin looked unnatural. It was stretched too tight over the bones. His eyes were wide, too wide, and they did not blink. Then I noticed the way he smiled. It was wrong. Not friendly, not polite. It looked stretched across his face. like his mouth was trying to remember what a smile was supposed to look like but could not quite get it right. I took a step back, trying to keep my voice steady this time. "Are you getting off at Harlow?" He did not answer. He just kept smiling at me, staring with that frozen expression. The lights flickered again. The windows reflected the empty seats behind me. I gripped the metal rail for a second, steadying myself, then backed away from him. That was when I noticed something that made my blood go cold. His eyes were following me. He had not moved his head, had not shifted in his seat, but every time I glanced away and looked back, I felt like he was closer, like the distance between us was shrinking without him moving at all. I told myself it was my imagination. I told myself not to panic, but then he stood up. No sound, no movement I could see. He was just suddenly standing in the narrow walkway between the seats. The air around him felt different, cold and heavy, like the whole train had slowed down, though I could still hear the engine roaring steadily beneath my feet. I started backing up. My hands were shaking. My mouth went dry. I wanted to scream. I wanted to jump off the train while it was still moving. Then he waved at me. Not like a greeting, more like a goodbye. A slow, taunting motion, like he was waiting for me to understand something I could not. The train passed through Harlow Station. I looked out the window as we rolled by. The platform was empty. No one was waiting. Not a single person anywhere. The station lights were on, but the benches were bare. The ticket booth was dark. We did not stop, so I turned back toward the cars. My heart was hammering in my chest. Every seat was empty now. I spun around fast, looking for him. He was gone. The aisle was clear. The seats were all vacant. Then I saw him again. He was standing near the exit door at the far end of the car, just standing there, staring at me. I backed away slowly, my eyes locked on him. He did not move, did not blink, just stood there with that horrible smile plastered across his face. Then I heard a voice, too close to my ear, right behind me. "See you some other time."